The puck is about to drop on your favorite all-Canadian hockey podcast. Without further ado, here are the boys with Canada.
Look at that. Live rolling. Welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of hockey, specifically in Canada, just like the name implies. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick. And I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host.
And on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. We are now half a week into the NHL, and I gotta say, this feels better than other seasons for me. I don't know if it's just the all-Canadian aspect or only having to sit through one anthem aspect or just 6 games a night, but I like it.
Yeah, the condensedness definitely helps because, you think it just adds brevity to every game, right? Like, every game seems a little bit more important, right? Over the span of 82 games, one game, you're like, But when you get down to that 56 games, pretty soon next week, we're only going to have 50 games left, which means every game counts for, 2% essentially of the remaining schedule, right? And that's huge.
And the interdivisional playoff thing is definitely helping the NHL's cause because it's basically 4-point games every night.
Yeah.
That is, you don't win, you're now a 2-point deficit. Kind of like Jeopardy, like how they always deducted money, and it took me probably 20 years of my life to figure out how they did it that way, but I made it, and now I bet on the NHL. So
sweet. That's natural progressions. You figure out how Jeopardy works, and then you become a hockey gambling expert.
Yeah, it was a fucking natural transition for me.
That easy. Awesome. So this is your first show. We have video, maybe. I don't know, fingers crossed. This might be coming out later today. Recording Saturday morning. So if anything big happens this afternoon, it's kind of like a preview show, kind of a recap, like I said off the top, let alone talking about specifically what happens on Saturday. So we might have to work a little bit on our timing, but maybe we're okay. Because we are Canada Puck, we talk about Canada, and now all hockey in Canada is one division. What's going on in the other divisions? Just a quick little head cap. Pulled it up on the screen here. Start with the Discover Central. Not a lot of games played. Some of these teams, Dallas, Florida, have not played due to some COVID postponement. Tampa Bay is leading 2-0. Carolina and Nashville have both wins. There's really not a lot to talk about. Anything out of the Central kind of jumps off the page.
We just have to talk about how bad Chicago's going to be. I did just a quick search. Chicago this year, they have just put Jonathan Toews on the LTIR along with Kirby Dach. That leaves them with 13 forwards who have accumulated about 2,200 points over the course of their career. But when you take away Patrick Kane's numbers, which is over 1,000, you have now 12 forwards who have averaged 100 career points. And there's some guys on that team who've played 600 games. So it's going to be a long season for Blackhawk fans. And there's not going to be a lot of goals involved. So especially when you have to go through Tampa, Carolina, but Dallas will probably pick up where they leave off too. So I don't know. But take the under if you're looking at points totals. I tried to get on it, but it was already off the board when I took a peek earlier this week. 48 feels way too high now.
I think earlier on we were kind of talking about those point totals too, right? And that's a good point. Because all these games are just them butting heads, the under might favor, right? Especially with these more talented divisions. So, if you can find it, it's good advice. How about Mass Mutual East, the best division of sports?
Yeah, that's going to be a gauntlet, that one. I don't know what to expect. I could really picture about all 7 teams having 60 points and really just a coin flip for whoever wins the last 4 games of the season to get into the postseason. And we're seeing it already with Washington, Buffalo. Buffalo outplayed Washington in both those games, but they somehow lost both of them. I expect that to be kind of the game script where you kind of get outplayed, things will balance out, and a lot of, like I said, right around 500 towards the end of the season and see who gets hot at the right time.
Nice. Yeah. Again, it's extremely early. I think we're going to see, I would predict that Philadelphia, Washington, the Islanders are probably top 3 teams in that division right now. Fourth is kind of open-ended. That's what we're seeing. Again, maybe 1 or 2 games played, lots of hockey left. Should be interesting. I don't think anything happened Was there a signing or a trade or something? No.
Well, there was something out of the Central, and it's not a trade or a signing, but Keith Yandel, who started almost 900 straight games, he could hypothetically get the Ironman streak next season if everything went well, but he's going to be a healthy scratch. So basically, Florida's fisting him, and his Ironman streak's just out the window. And I think it's kind of one of those cunty, like Mike Babcock type moves where it's like, screw this guy. He's still super productive. 34, I think he put up 45 points in 70 games last year. Like, I don't know what went wrong this offseason with Keith Yandel, but for some reason he fell out of favor with Florida. And my sincerest hope is that he gets traded before their season starts so that Ironman streak can keep going. Because I always liked Keith Yandel. I even paid attention to him when he was in Arizona. And who the fuck likes Arizona or even watches their hockey games? So,
wow.
He meant something to me.
That is a mark of dedication if you're paying attention to Arizona hockey. How about the Honda West? Nothing over spectacular. The Colorado Avalanche shellacked the Blues last night. 8-0. Colorado looks really good, and it kind of seems unfair almost, the amount of talent this team has amassed.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time in our first episode, but I think that this is Vegas's division to lose. No disrespect to Colorado, but Vegas has done this year over year over year, and Colorado feels kind of like one of those trendy picks, and like trendy for the right reason. They have a lot of talented forwards, but like Philip Grubauer, I don't know if he's the difference. And if it comes to push versus shove, I'm going to take Robin Lehner over Philip Grubauer, and that is if we assume that forwards and defensemen are equal parts in Vegas and Colorado. But I think that Vegas holds the advantage really in every aspect of the advanced metrics. So I'm still sticking with Vegas on this one.
Nice. I'm just going to do a cool zoom in if you're watching on the video. I'm doing that with just the keyboard. That's how impressive it is. Grant, you can't see that. Maybe we'll figure out like a way of like screen sharing so you can see what's going on, and then I can like point to the screen and stuff in the future. We'll figure out this video thing. This is like our first attempt, so it took us 5 years to figure out the podcasting part of it. So
yeah, 2030 is going to be our year. But that kind of makes me. You kind of feel like a professor, like, here, Grant, can I direct your attention to here? You can wave your cursor over it, and then I could fall asleep, just like I would in regular university classes.
I'm expecting a pair of glasses with, like, eyes painted on them next episode, so you got a week.
I got a week. All right, well, China ships a lot quicker than that. Amazon could probably drop it off on my doorstep by noon. But
yep. There you go. Nice little purchase. So normal with the show rolls I think we're going to do that, kind of just touch on the other divisions quick, see if anything jumps off the page of note in those other kind of three divisions. And then primarily focus just on the Scotia North, talk about the Canadian content. 1 to 2 games played for all these teams. So again, early on in the season, it's almost kind of like a preseason show. We're still kind of filling it out. Just like them, just like us, we're all trying to figure this out. So we got the Scotia North, bottom of the standings, work our way up. That leaves us with the Calgary Flames at 0-1. Oh, they overtime loss, actually. So they have 1 point. Wow, look at that. Go Calgary. Anything jump off from Calgary's overtime loss to Winnipeg?
Well, this is a perfect time to overreact, I would say, 1 game into the season. But they kind of, and it's a theme that I've noticed for a couple teams in the NHL North Division. They picked up where they left off, and that is questionable road performances. I love their forwards groups. I love to see, and it pains me to say this as an Oilers fan, but I love to see Tkachuk do what he does because he's that fucking pest that you just love to hate. And Monahan, Goudreau, super skilled. But their defense just leaves a little bit to be desired. And I don't know if it's like structure. I don't know if it's forwards like getting too aggressive in the offensive zone. But they just aren't a cohesive unit for all 200 feet of the ice. And that might haunt them in this division because there are teams that do that a little better than them. I still think that they're going to be in the playoff conversation, but I think it's going to be a battle. And we'll use Wednesday or Thursday night's game as Winnipeg as a metaphor for that. And that's what it's going to come down to. And it'll be a pain in the ass if it comes down to 1 point and the first loss of the season in overtime where they blew a lead is the difference. But that's what we might have to expect in this year's NHL.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's... So I was watching that game. I got distracted, I think, by a basketball game or something like that when it was 3-1. Came back and it was 3-3 and then kind of watched the remainder of the affair. So I'm not sure what happened to the other 2 goals with Winnipeg, but they just seemed kind of like broken... Like the first goal anyways for Winnipeg was just a broken play. Liney kind of sniped it there. But other than that, Calgary looked like they were in control of that game. And I know that Tkachuk started kind of going after them and starting getting some of the tempers flaring and trying to get a little bit more truculence into the affair. And I think that was that when it was 3-3, or did that kind of spark the Winnipeg offense?
To be honest, I wasn't watching that game. I can't remember where I was tuned in, but that sounds like classic Tkachuk.
So Tkachuk, I think he was trying to get something going, and you like to see guys like that. But it's one of those things where I think, I don't know. I don't know if they're getting tired of it. If I would be, right? The same old song and dance where he's kind of a meathead. He's got the high-end skill, so he's going to get to keep playing. But what he does is he lights a fire under the other team, right? And I don't know. It'd be annoying as a fan to watch that.
Just taking a quick look at the box score, I don't know if it really paid off because Winnipeg here was leading power plays 4-3, and both teams recorded a power play goal. But it looks like whatever Tkachuk was doing, the Jets weren't picking up on. And maybe they've just caught on to his tricks. Maybe they know what to expect, and they just said, "Fuck this guy."
Okay, all right. Let's look at Les Habitants at number 6. They've played a game. And they've lost a game in overtime to the Toronto Maple Laughs. So, man, poor Montreal.
Yeah, you want to talk about truculence? Willie Nylander came out flat out and said that Simmons fight was exactly what prompted the Toronto comeback. And they came back 3 separate occasions on that game, which kind of speaks to what we would expect offensively from them. But getting back to Montreal here, I don't know how you blow 3, especially on the road, a lead 3 times and then lose in overtime. That stings. Carey Price wasn't what he was supposed to be in that game, but their offense did look good, and that's exactly what I was kind of preaching last episode, was that I expect Josh Anderson and Nick Suzuki to be exactly what you saw against Toronto on the first night of the season.
My favorite was the start of the second or third, one of the intermissions coming back into it. They were like, "Oh, Josh Anderson seems like a great kid," and he starts adjusting his pants. So essentially, just pulls up his jersey, shows off his stomach, and then he starts slowly undoing his knot on his belt, and it looks basically like he's just going to pull his dick out on national TV, and they're praising this guy, and it's just all dick, all crotch. I don't know. I imagine those replays don't exist, but if you could find that video, I'm this is one of the greatest broadcasts I have ever seen. So I thought that was pretty enduring.
I think we found our new intro for the next podcast. We'll just start every episode with Josh Anderson groping himself mid-game.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it to Grant, and Grant's just going to be slowly adjusting his belt and stuff like that. And you're just oh, okay, why is he wearing a rope belt? That seems a little...
Good thing you figured out those zoom keys, Mick.
Yeah, there you go. I was zoom in, zoom in, zoom in.
A little closer, a little closer.
A little closer, a little closer. It doesn't have to be that close, though. Wink!
So Montreal's opening, I think, 2 games against Edmonton here. You don't want to fall behind in the standings. 1 point's great, but you can't lose ground, especially early in the season, with only 55 games to catch up now. So we'll see what their road attitude is and if they've adjusted it to play a little bit more defensively sound.
Nice. And then that moves us on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. At number 5, they have a win and a loss. Ooh, they lost to the Ottawa Senators last night. As I'm sitting here, my Leafs jersey, got my nice little Leafs hat on. It's game day. I thought game day jersey. Might throw a new jersey on every week. I don't have that many, but 20, 30 shows. I could probably almost do a new jersey every show. So that's pretty exciting.
I've seen your jersey collection. In fact, you can see it in the background right there. I'm confident you can make it through the entire season changing jerseys. I've got a really limited selection. My jersey collection actually comes in the NFL form. I could do an NFL jersey, but that kind of goes against the grain with the Canada Puck podcast. Oh,
I was going to do a Packers jersey next week if they're in the championship game.
Cool.
Anyways, Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, they seemed like they had a little bit of heart determination in that first game against Montreal. They were obviously excited. Some of the line combos, they were switched kind of throughout the game. We saw Hyman kind of move to that top line with Austin Matthews and replace Thornton. I don't know if that was a big difference maker. Joe looks good, actually. If you want to just talk about guys, looks trim. He's skating with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, 2 of the better skaters in the NHL right now. He wasn't missing a beat. At one point, he was actually pushing Austin Matthews with the butt of his stick down the ice to kind of poke him in the butt, literally, and get him going into a play because he knew he had the speed to catch up. So you like to see those veteran presence. Other than that, like, I didn't watch the game last night because it was regionally locked, and Gary Bettman did not send me center ice. But I'm guessing it was one of those trap games, right? Like, you think, hey, this team sucks, we're going to beat them, no problem, let's go out. Versus the Ottawa Senators, and I guess we can get to them at any point. But those guys haven't played hockey in 10 months. They have not been competitive. These guys want to play. If you can't get hyped for your first hockey game in 10 months, you don't deserve a contract, right? Like, they might as well just void all the contracts on that team, start again. So, I mean, it's good that they came out with this performance. Tonight's going to be a really telling display of what's the bounce back, right? This is, I think, going to be a better marker of the season. Like, how do you step up to the challenge, right? How do you answer that call to arms that the Senators put up from the Leafs' point of view versus last night's performance, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a few things that jumped out at me, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, is that the Maple Leafs are exactly who they were last year. They give up too many chances defensively. Defensively, I don't know what it is with them too, because like when you're outchanced by Ottawa, you're outchanced by Montreal in the first two games of the season, you give up 9 high danger chances against in both games, while creating on only 5 and 6. Like, it doesn't feel like this team plays with any urgency, and I think urgency is going to be required. Joe Thornton, I think his beard is a perfect analogy for how he lives his life. When it gets a little unkempt, Joe's let himself go a little bit. But he came into Toronto, trimmed it up. He looks good. He does look like a hockey player. And 2 other points I just want to touch on. Fuck these local lockouts, or blackouts. Yeah. How, in an NHL world where we can't even go see games live, are we still getting regional blackouts on games? Like, it just, there's no possible other way for us to watch these games. And the NHL says, no, you can't watch them.
Yeah.
And the last part, I actually made a killing. It was my biggest bet in a long time on Ottawa last night. I really felt like they're going to catch some teams off guard this year, particularly early in the season, because we don't really know what to expect with Ottawa. Like you said, it's been 10 months. They've had kind of a roster overhaul. They've got the Stützle kid who's dynamite, Thomas Chabot who's going to be good, Brady Tkachuk who's something special. Like, when we look at this team as a whole, and I think hopefully you guys all got on the points total over that we talked about last week, I think that this team is going to be good. And I think the most exciting thing that could happen is if Ottawa is in a playoff spot with 2 weeks to go, because that would just throw the media into a frenzy and get really us amped up for playoffs that maybe we don't need that extra poke in the butt like Joe Thornton gives us, but it would definitely be that fight.
And I mean, on that note, too, I mean, the greatest thing in the world would you just expedite what happened over the course of the season, right? So 53 games left, there's 3 games left on the schedule, and everyone's within 1 or 2 points of each other, would be freaking exciting. It's basically the playoffs, right? Those last 3, 4, 5 games, you basically get a new round of the playoffs, right? Where every game matters, every win is the top of the world, every loss is getting a cut to the heart, and that's kind of what you want, right? So I mean, the parity at this point, in this season, is going to be super critical down the road just for the excitement, right? Like, if you're out by, that 40 game mark, that sucks. We basically want 7 games competing right down to the line. I think that would be the most exciting. On to number 4, Vancouver Canucks. 2 games. They've got a win and a loss against the Edmonton Oilers. Because they played each other, we can kind of just clump Edmonton and Vancouver into one. Talk about those 2 games if you partaked in those, and then go from there. So, Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
I'll just throw this out there. Braden Holtby looked really good in their win. I think Thatcher Demko kind of looked a little shaky in the loss. Going forward, you almost maybe want to hitch your wagon to Braden Holtby. I don't know if Thatcher Demko is the answer.
Well, let's not toot Braden Holtby's horn too much here. I think he stopped less than 90% of shots at even strength. And Edmonton just kind of looked out of sorts in that one. I don't know what it is. I think the bad goals hurt them the most. And that sucks because they have fucking Mikko Koskinen in that for basically the foreseeable future. And bad goals are kind of a frequent occurrence with him. And what you could see, you could literally see the energy drain out of the Oilers when it happens, because they stop playing their game. They get into this lazy, sloppy turnover mode. And that's really was the undoing in game, the first game of the season against the Canucks. In game 2, Koskinen was sharp, and this is the Jekyll Hyde that we've come to expect from, at least I've come to expect from Koskinen as an Oilers fan, is that like he will look great and then he will look shit, and there's honestly no telling what you're gonna get. At the time, and we saw Dave Tippett do this last year, is that Vancouver, when the goalie played badly, he would get them back in, kind of like you fall off the horse, you get back on it right away. Like, don't let them sit and stew on this. Like, it was like, you play shit, guess what? Get out there, play better tonight. And that's what I thought we were getting with Koskinen on the second game. But really, it's because Mike Smith is dead. Maybe not dead, but not doing well. He's on the LTIR. And the Oilers just lost their offseason acquisition or signing, Anton Forsberg, to waivers. He went to Carolina. Carolina just fucking poached him for no reason. They didn't even want him. They wanted to trade him. They couldn't find a trade partner, so he ends up on waivers. And now Anton Forsberg is a Winnipeg Jet. And that leaves Edmonton with Stuart Skinner, who played in the ECHL or maybe he played in the AHL. I think he did get a taste in the AHL, but limited professional experience. Like, Mick, I'm not doing so good.
Yeah, that honestly just sounds like kind of one of those mismanagements. Well, obviously of just the roster, right? From maybe an inexperienced GM working in these systems, right? And I mean, because of these weird waiver wire transactions, and there might be a waiting period to get into the States. Although I think I saw something. I thought I read something or heard someone say something about trades. And because these players are technically allowed to play hockey now, they would in theory just be allowed to waive the 14-day waiver period, like COVID period, and be able to go join their other team, assuming that they have like 2 negative tests or something like that. So apparently with trades, they can happen pretty quickly, kind of like relative like what they used to. So that's good news kind of for those outer division trades, right? So you're not just trading in-house, right? Yeah, sorry. Sucks.
Like, I've read something on the internet earlier this week about Jimmy Howard, who I guess is a free agent. Obviously got those Ken Holland connections from their time in Detroit. But he doesn't really make me feel any better about the goaltending situation.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Like, outside of maybe getting Fleury on a rental, but I know for a fact they can't afford him. Like, I just don't see what the goaltending solution is this season. And that pains me so much because goaltending is going to be critical, especially when you're playing like 3 and 4 most of the season. So I hope that there's a trade partner out there to be had and they find a way to make it work because they need help in net right now.
Well, I mean, considering that was definitely something you should have taken care of in the offseason, 2 games into the season, you're now griping about it. Well played, Edmonton. Well played.
And everybody's, if you want to get into the offseason conversation, Ken Holland, like, he had his thumb up his butt the entire offseason when it came to goaltenders. Other way, like, offensive, defensively, he had a hell of an offseason. But then you come back and you say, shit, like, Mike Smith's still our goalie. And now you're stuck with not even Mike Smith anymore because he's injured. Mikko Koskinen. God.
Yeah, it's too bad. Too bad. How about Winnipeg Jets? They played that one game against Calgary, and we kind of like briefly touched on it. I mean, if Patrick Laine is going to score goals for these guys, he might be one of the best goal scorers in the league when he's on his game. But we've also seen him take 30 game droughts, right? So, I mean, that's half the season at this point. He can't do that. So, I mean, if Laine is on his game, is he trying to play his way out of town, or does he want to stay there? Like, do we know kind of what Laine is thinking at this point?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I had it scribbled down. I was like, Laine is playing his way out of Winnipeg. I think maybe he's had it with the non-stop chatter of him constantly being traded. Like, that would weigh me down. I'd just say, fuck this.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Canadian market's for everybody. Maybe he's finally accepted the pressure, and this is just the end result of, 3 years of, growing up. But I think it's kind of the other end of the spectrum where he's just kind of said, you know what? I want to be somewhere where they appreciate me and they don't constantly talk about trading me.
Well, not only that, but, Canadian markets are okay, but I feel like Winnipeg's a whole other creature, right? Because, I mean, they've got rough summers, they've got rough winters, and maybe just it's exaggerated through stories. Like, maybe I should go live in Winnipeg for a year so I can be like, oh, it's not that bad. I get it. It's just a story. But, I mean, they have awful, awful winters. And, I mean, you play in Canada. Half this hockey season's through the winter, right? And if it's minus 40 outside, I don't want to do stuff, right? I've done that before. We've all had those things where you go for a workout one day and you step outside and it's -5 and you're like, nah, I don't got it. And you run around the block and you walk half the way because you just don't have it. And then there's other days you step outside, it's sunny, winds in your back, and you run for 10 miles kind of thing. So, I mean, I could see where Line is like, I'm just not feeling it today, guys. I'm sorry.
I got two things. So, one, he's finished, so I guarantee you any Canadian city is probably close to equivalent, if not maybe a little upgrade off of what you get in Finland.
Yep.
And second, I would absolutely love to see Winnipeg Mick, because I picture you coming back with like a Jesus-type beard, pink hair, like you started a punk band, like that's Winnipeg Mick.
Ooh, all right. Well, that's sold. All right. Coming for you, Winnipeg. Is it cheaper to live than Calgary?
Oh, yeah, it's dirt cheap in Winnipeg.
Great. Awesome. All right.
They give away beer beer's free in Winnipeg.
Great. So, maybe first time on this podcast that we are going to end our headline segment because the number one team is the Ottawa Senators. They might have had like a good start here or there, but like, all right, we'll give you this. So, the number one team, the Ottawa Senators, according to the standings, they've played a game, they've won a game. Great. Good job, team.
Not only did they play and win, but they actually, from a metrics perspective, did better than the Leafs. So at 5-on-5, they created more scoring chances, more high danger chances. Obviously, scored more goals. Slight advantage in shots and percentage too. Like when Ottawa looked good last night, and I kind of gushed over them earlier. I can't even remember. Maybe we were supposed to talk about Vancouver or somebody, and I brought up Winnipeg or Ottawa.
Yeah.
Or no, it was Toronto. And I like what they're putting down, and I expect this to continue. I think that they are going to be competitive, and they have, like I said, better group of forwards, a solid defense, and a huge upgrade in Matt Murray. And that, no disrespect, Craig Anderson, but like I can't imagine being 38 playing as an NHL goaltender. I can barely even tie my shoes as a 34-year-old. So, I think all aspects better, and this is one of the teams where we're going to see a lot of growth this year.
Well, not only that, and I was just kind of thinking about this, and of what were the teams that didn't make the bubble last year? So there was 5 teams, is that right? If 24 teams went plus 7? So 7 teams' seasons just ended, right? The Leafs, lost that thrilling Game 5 after that comeback in Game 4 to the Blue Jackets. And the Montreal Canadiens, they put up a good fight against the Flyers, but they at least had endings to their season, right? The Ottawa Senators were basically just told, it's on hiatus, and then you're done, right? That is one of the most, they were almost getting edged, and then all of a sudden the girl just left the room or something like that, and they're like, they were literally blue-balled the shit last season, right? So these guys are all competitives, they're all top 500 hockey players in the world, right? So, I mean, you figure the drive and the desire to kind of want to come out and just prove yourself has to be there, right? So, I mean, I think we saw that last night where they came out, and again, like I said, if you're not fired up for last night's game, you'll never be fired up for a game in your life, right? So, we'll see what...
I love where you went with the blue ball analogy. It's funny, my head went a completely different direction. I was thinking my name is Earl. When you started describing the Ottawa Senators season last year, I was like, man, this feels a lot like My Name is Earl, where you kind of just get left on a big cliffhanger and you don't really have a resolution. But I think blue balls is also appropriately.
Oh, either one, right? Like, I mean, and again, it's just one of those things where, imagine, like, it'd be like getting sent home from work at noon. Sounds like fun, but if you had a project you were really working and you liked your job, and then all of a sudden there's like, no, you got to go home at noon, you can't finish today, go away. You're going to come back tomorrow with maybe a little bit more like ferocity and like attack that project head on versus the guy who had to stay at the end of the day and like was counting the hours on the clock or something, right? So my first analogy yeah, my first analogy was better. I don't know where I went with that one.
Who likes going to work, man?
Painters. But guys that make paintings, not like painting walls.
Well, painters, like the wall painters, I think those guys just love to get high and paint because it's such a seamless job and you have the transformation in front of you.
Yeah, that's true.
I think regular painters or picture painters, they seem a little depressed. I feel like you have to have some instability to want to go paint for a living.
Okay,
but
all right. Maybe. Okay. Well, that's all I got on the Senators. We'll see what happens tonight. Again, super early. They could be 1-55 at the end of the season. And I was like, well, I saw that coming, right? So there's lots of possibilities at this point.
I love overreacting to the first week of the season. It's one of my favorite things to do. So
sweet. Nice. So with that, that kind of wraps up our headline section. Normally what we were doing was we would do headlines. We would do some type of fantasy hockey. So we were looking at like daily fantasy lines. I didn't do that. I did look up some rules. So, I mean, if anyone is looking to get into it, a couple rules I looked up at one point when I was trying to do some early research, so I could share that now. And then I kind of do have a fun game for Grant. So get into that for a little better advice.
I'm still kind of parsing through things on the better advice things. I know, but it is always fun ending on a game. So I'll leave it up to you. Dealer's choice. If you have some bets you like to make or you've got your better advice figured out, you go ahead, let her rip. And then I'll just put my last few bets together here. And then we can end with the game, if that's your cup of tea.
Okay, so, daily fantasy. So let's go back to let's do better advice right now. We'll figure that out. Okay. For myself, I think just the inherent trend right now is goaltending is questionable across the board. I don't know if there's any goalies out there that were saying they're doing a great job, unless the forward defensive group in front of them is just killing it, right? Overs are probably more favorable. I don't know the exact numbers right now, but I'm thinking just basically looking at the box scores the last couple of games. The overs are trending. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to splatter 3 overs in 3 different games. I'm going to do Calgary, Vancouver. Following goalie. We're going to go over in the Vegas game, and I like the over in the Detroit, Carolina game. Might even be a close affair on that one. And let's do over on Oilers, Montreal. There's some offensive power for you right there.
Okay, you rattled off 4 games there. Are you taking 3 or are you doing all 4 for 25?
Nope, I'm doing 3. I got Montreal, Edmonton over, Carolina, Detroit over, as well as the Anaheim, Vegas over. So
Vegas, Carolina, Montreal. So Carolina, Montreal set at 5.5. It looks like minus 120 on the over, or do you have minus 110?
Did I click unders on all of them? I did click unders on all of them. So which was the first one? Carolina. Yeah, 120. I got 5.5 over minus 120. In the Montreal Edmonton game, I've got the over at 6.5 goals for minus 105. And then I've got the over 6 goals in the Anaheim Vegas game at, did I say 6? 6 goals for minus 105. The most compelling video you'll ever see a guy looking at his phone gambling.
All right, $33 a piece. I like it. Over has been a trend. I didn't look last night, but I think through the first 2 nights it was hitting at 9 out of 15 games. Favorites were kind of trending as well. I think it was 7 out of 10 on the second night and 3 out of 5 on the first night. So we'll see how long those trends last. I have 3 games. Loyal listeners obviously know how much I love the overtime bets, especially on Saturday. It just feels like a special occasion. One thing that I always looked for was second night of a back-to-back with a backup goaltender starting on the second night. And I think that's kind of what we're getting with the Ottawa-Toronto. So I have $20 on them at plus 360. It will be interesting to see how this actually shakes out over the course of the year, because obviously circumstances are different in that if you're playing back-to-back, you're going to most likely see the same team on both occasions. So I don't know if that trend will be as reliable. But I'm willing to roll the dice with it on the first Saturday of the year. So next one, NYR. So I got the Rangers Islanders under 5.5 at plus 110 for $30. I think that this under, there's very few teams in the NHL this year where the under is going to be a good look, and the Islanders are one of those teams. Barry Trotz knows what he has, and he always gets the most out of his teams, and he does have a defensive mentality, so they're not going to give up a whole bunch. I expect a tighter defensive effort from the Rangers, especially early on, because I think it was 3 first period goals that sunk the Rangers on the first game of the season. So I expect tighter defensive effort from the Rangers and what we've seen from the Islanders. Last one, my biggest play, $50, Calgary minus 150 over Vancouver. Vancouver is one of those, and it's not a whole really unfortunate circumstance, but you start on the road, you get Edmonton, Calgary. I feel like these compounded quick trips are going to make it really hard to be successful, and I wouldn't be surprised to see. And Calgary was way better on home ice than they were on the road last year, and I expect that to be another trend that continues. So Calgary minus 150 for $50 will be the biggest play of the day for me. I will be tracking this a lot more closely than we have in years past, and maybe once we get this video figured out, we can even show you our fancy spreadsheet that tracks, you know, winning percentages, return on investment, and types of bets. So whether it's a proposition, total, side, to just see, you know, maybe we'll recognize some things about ourselves that will help us be better bettors as well.
Well, that's usually how I work too. I'll end up like losing 25% of my bankroll before I realize some type of trend that I've been kind of like incorrectly guessing on. Correct that, and I'll make back that money or something like that, right? So reflecting back on those things rather than just throwing out 3 random teams every week and then forgetting about it in the future and making the same mistakes in perpetuity does not get you very far. So,
and one of the things that I do as a personal bettor is I track, and like it's hard to do all the time because when you're constantly making bets and betting on all sorts of goofy shit like women's Lithuanian basketball, when you just get that itch on a Thursday morning, like it's kind of hard to stay on top of it. But I have made an effort early this year to I even entitled the spreadsheet Honest Record Keeping, so that is keeping track of all my bets across online platforms and sports select tickets, because I can't help myself with that. Just to see how well we're doing with different types of bets. So maybe we'll keep you posted on that too. And if anybody is interested, I mean, the spreadsheets, if you don't know Excel, it's super simple. Some ifs, basically what it boils down to. So anybody needs help with getting started with the gambling spreadsheet, just hit me up.
Sweet yo. All right, so now to daily fantasy. Again, it's one of those things, maybe give it a week, look at some trends. We'll kind of come back with some actual advice for kind of those DFS lineups next week. I was looking at some rules. Stacking is huge, right? So in theory, if Connor McDavid is scoring a goal, one of the other forwards that plays with him, so kind of check on the lines for the day, see who's playing with your stud that you want to play, because you might get some assists somewhere along the line. Pay up for defense. So usually defensive players, they're usually worth the high-end guys. You know, Shea Weber's going to score a couple goals tonight. He might be the highest defenseman on the board. It might be worth that, you know, versus in getting some bargains on the forward position rather than just throwing random defensemen out there, because those 4th, 5th guys often usually aren't involved in scoring plays. And then the third piece of dice is with those defensemen, stack your goalie. So if your Shea Weber is going to score a couple goals, chances are he's probably on the offensive zone quite a bit, which means there's not as much pressure on the Carey Price, which means he gets the win, right? So if you kind of look at the high-end stack on the defense, or pay up for defense, stack your goalies, and then look for kind of stacks up front, or even power play units where those defensemen play up front with the forward. It's probably going to give you better results. So I'm going to try that the next couple weeks, play with it this week, maybe kind of keep track, see if there is any success I'm having, any trends I'm noticing from there. That's all.
Let her rip.
Yeah.
I respect how much effort you've put into this. I took a hard stance against DFS a few years ago just because I hated the nerds who said it wasn't gambling. Like, this is fucking gambling through and through. The legal definition of gambling is that the house makes money. And guess how much rake these DFS sites are taking? Like, that's how they stay in business. So I have tried to get into it. I did a little bit of football this season. Started off successful. Obviously, petered out a little bit because there are people who take this a lot more seriously than I do. But it's one of those things that I'm also going to try and put a little more effort into. See if I can come up with some strategies that complement mix, and maybe even we'll get into some head-on-head tournament or head-on-head bets on DFS. Maybe that's how we could approach the My Dirty Fantasy this year, and at the same time pooling our collective mental resources to try and win those big paydays on those big tournaments.
Nice. I like it. All right. So now a little game. So I'm a Scheisler. I like to, jab Grant a couple times. I like a good game. On our last podcast, Grant openly stated that the Montreal Canadian forwards are the best forwards in Canada. The best offense in Canada comes from the Montreal Canadian forwards.
I think my words were the best group of forwards. And
Great.
I think what I was alluding to is that they're clearly defined roles with these forwards, and I fucking stick by that. After seeing Josh Anderson, Nick Suzuki do what they wanted to do, and seeing what dumpster fire the Leafs were, how irresponsible Edmonton is in their own end with their 5-on-5 play, I'm sticking with it.
All right.
So screw.
So I'm going to give you no heads up on this one. So this is just going to be shooting from the hip, one of your favorite things to do. I'm going to pose a challenge to you. I'm going to put a 2-person pool together, just you and I. I am going to take at least the top 3 forwards, in my opinion, from the Vancouver Canucks. You can take the top 3 forwards from the Montreal Canadiens, the best goal defenseman, maybe 2 defensemen, and then we will pick another. We want 7 forwards, 3 defensemen. We'll see who has the most points at the end of the season. Because I think I'm getting such a clear advantage, or a disadvantage, by you having the best forwards, offensive forwards in Canada with the Montreal Canadiens. I'm disadvantaged already, so I'll just take the Vancouver forwards, top 3, and then we'll try and pick who has the most points at the end of the season. So,
okay, so just before we get into this, are we doing a just total points, or are we going to put more weight on power play points or something along those lines?
I think just points, goals, assists.
All right. And I get to so you can't touch Montreal forwards, is what you're saying, or you have to let me pick 3 first, and then you can pick any other ones.
So the game is, we have to have at least 3, but I will match you. So if you went 6, I would have to go 6. So I have to match you regardless.
You're such a fucking Scheisner. Oh, of course you want to make me eat my own words.
Yep.
All right. Well, thankfully, I do think that the Montreal Canadiens have a lot of upside this season, and I'm so happy. I have the 3 guys that I want to take. And does that mean you're also going to match me on defensemen as well?
Yeah, I mean,
just
in theory, if you wanted to take all Montreal, I would be handcuffed to take just the Vancouver Canucks, and we could look at just from a point production point of view, which offense is in theory better. So,
all right, I dig it. Let's fuck. So I guess
you have to do at least 3, at least 3 forwards and a defenseman, and then you can kind of pick. You can have first pick, and I'll just match you.
Okay, and we're leaving goaltenders out of this, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mr. 3 apples on the first night, Jonathan Drouin is going to be my first guy.
All right.
Are we going pick for pick, or you want me to just let it rip here with
you got at least 3 forwards and a defenseman.
Okay, so next, Josh Anderson. He looked good. He sniped 2. He's going to be my next forward pick. And then last, Nick Suzuki. Only got 1 point, but you know what? I was happy with what I saw. Nick Suzuki is the guy.
All right.
This is where I'm torn with the defenseman. Like, we know what we're getting with Shea Weber. But Jeff Petrie looked good in the first game, too. You know what? Screw you, Nick. I'm taking Petrie and Weber.
Petrie and Weber. All right. So just for clarification, to match, I'm going to go with Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, and Brock Besser as forwards. I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes on defense, and I think I will do an... I'm going to go, unfortunately, with Alex Edler as my second defenseman.
I knew taking 2 defensemen would fist you.
Yeah.
Like, granted, you have a big advantage with Quinn Hughes. I'm not hoping he breaks his leg or anything, but I hope he hits a bit of a sophomore slump. Right. So Pettersson, Bozer, Miller, then you got Hughes and Edler.
Yep.
All right.
All right, so then I basically have to match your picks. So, I mean, if your next pick is a Montreal Canadian, I'm forced to take a Canuck.
Okay. You know what? I really want to take Romanov because I don't think he's going to light the world on fire. 25, 30 points, maybe. And I don't know if there's another Vancouver defenseman who's going to crack the double-digit mark. So, but I know it's a bit of a risk. Yeah, you know what? I am going to take that. I think there's at least a 15-point advantage. I'm taking Alexander Romanov.
Romanov. All right. Then I guess I will go with... let's do Nate Schmidt.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
More
so
defensive.
So that's our defenseman. So we still have 4 picks left, and they have to be in the forward category. So.
Okay, I am going back to the Canadians well on this one. I'm going Brendan Gallagher.
Gallagher, and I will meet your Gallagher with a. Let's do a Bo Horvat.
Okay. the shit's getting real.
3 players.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Montreal Canadiens, but I've only got 4 forwards. And I think to prove my point, I'm going to have to choose at least one more. He didn't record a point in the first one, but I do think that he'll find his rhythm. I'm going Tyler Toffoli.
Toffoli. All right. Then I guess I have to meet that with... Let's go with Shotgun Jake. There you go. Jake Virtanen.
All right. All right. I'm happy. I've proven my point. I've got, 1, 2, 3. I've got 5 forwards, 3 defensemen from the Canadiens. You've got your same number of Vancouver Canucks. So I can't turn my back on it as an Oilers on Connor McDavid. So I'm taking McJesus. McJesus is my next guy.
McDavid. Well, I'm going to match you beat for beat, and I'm going to go with my boy, Leon Draisaitl. So.
I was hoping you'd forget about him.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I have the little stats page, and I mean, they're already 4 and 5 in scoring in the league, so great.
Shit, hey.
So 1 player left each. I'll leave you the honors. So there you go. You can have the last forward off the board.
And this is where I think you're going to match me again. I've taken the group of forwards that I wanted to from the team that I think very highly of. I've taken my favorite player off of my team. Maybe not my favorite player, but obviously the best. Now I'm going to poach one of your favorite players. And I'm a little bit torn here. Because I don't know. I know that whichever one I go with, you're going to go with the opposite. And it's really just about weighing which Toronto Maple Leaf is going to have the most successful offensive season. And through 2 games, there's a very clear leader in this category. But I'm not convinced it's going to last that long. But you know what? Tempest, fuck it. I'm going John Tavares.
Oh, look at that. A John Tavares to round out Grant's. Well, I'm going to go... I think I'm going to go back to the books, the futures market on this one. Who is the favorite for the MVP this year? I'm going to go with Nathan MacKinnon as my last forward.
Oh.
So I've got extra on top of my Vancouver Canucks with a Draisaitl and a MacKinnon. Grant with McDavid and Tavares. I will post that on some type of online, or I think there's online pools or something like that. Kind of keep track of us, so we can periodically check in to see how great the Montreal Canadiens offense is. The greatest group of forwards in Canada.
Hockey pools. I think they do free hosting. You can do hockey pools, add the roster, and then it just does all the work for you. I can check on it every night and just cry myself to sleep because you know what? Mick found somehow a new way to make me regret opening my big fucking yapper.
There you go. Awesome. So with that, that's kind of the little bit of fun gambling advice. Fun game I have. I'm going to... let's just go to the homepage. See what's going on the homepage of NHL.com. And then that's kind of all we got for this week. So good stuff.
Well, it wouldn't be a Canada Puck podcast without the Babe of the Week. I talked a little bit about inclusivity. I think it's a big thing, and obviously the sports world being what it is, we want to make it a more inclusive place. So kind of mixing up, our babes and what the criteria I consider for the Babe of the Week. This one, I'm going official Liz Sanchez. This is a lady who does it all, so she's going to be somebody, if you haven't followed her on Twitter or Instagram already, you might want to check in. Let me just see here. 259,000 people can't be wrong, so official Liz Sanchez, you're our Babe of the Week.
It's not bad. Congratulations. That's good stuff. So, yeah, without that, that's kind of all we got for this week. I'll be back next week, probably a different looking video or worse looking video. I mean, there's always a chance this is the best we ever do when we go down, so that's exciting.
Nick might have a black eye because I'm going to be so angry when Montreal doesn't score for the next week.
Yeah, they just go on.
Ding dong!
Yeah, good old droughts. So, there you go. So, with that, that's all we got. So, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick, and we'll see everybody next week.
Nice. I'm going to stop that. And then